Okay, people, we have got what I know is going to be an incredible episode for you today, as I am joined by Raynald Leconte. Leconte?
Leconte.
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 Okay, Raynald Leconte, to talk about his new upcoming documentary, Amazing Grace, YorubaWorlds, which is, I mean, it's in the friggin' title, man. It's amazing. This is incredible. But Raynald, thank you so much for joining us today. How the hell are you
Thank
doing,
you. I'm doing good. I'm right now recovering from Cannes.
man?
I'm in Marseille, which is not up 2 hours north of Cannes. So we were just at Cannes presenting the film at the Pavilion Afro Nova at the Marché de Cannes, which is where you want to be. This is where all the buyers and
Yeah.
distributors are in parallel with the festival. But we were equally represented because we were right on the Croisette, which is where all the other big films are being represented, and during the red carpet. We had our own mini red carpet, but it was as valuable as having a big red carpet because some amazing people showed up, and it gave the film the exposure we needed, which is now we're trying to build the momentum by talking to you, my dear Kevin, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, incredible, man. Yeah, because I got an email from Chick Heart. Incredible people. I love working with those ladies. And
Amazing.
been like, oh, you should come to Cannes. We're gonna do this thing. And I'm just like, God damn it, I wish I could. But you know what I mean? Let's just have a conversation anyway, you know. So yeah, the fact that, and it looked like it was gonna be this incredible, you know, like this celebration of Wole Soyinka and just this whole big thing. So it looked like on the ground it was going to be incredible. So I'm glad that it was that experience for you.
Yes, so totally. The center of the film is Africa's first Nobel winner in literature, 1986, the one and only Professor Wole Soyinka, who he's going to be 92 this year, I believe.
Mm.
He's a spring-like as a young 40-year-old, and he still travels the world. And unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but I represented this man, and I was very honored to.
Nice, man. It's funny because right, you have Wole in the documentary and Gilberto Gil, who is also 90, right? I believe.
He's like pushing 80, he's like 80 something, but he's like in the same group and giants, living, walking giants that we have
Mm.
left.
Yeah, the people that you have in this documentary, it is incredible. It's like a phenomenal, you know, lineup of just people to talk, and it's fascinating, right? Because we talk about, you know, the Yoruba Decipher, and I went to an event at the Barbican years ago, and it was an African Brazilian sound clash, and that was the first time that I came across Gilberto. And, you know, just listening to all of this music from these two different places, but this energy, like the energy running through it was the same. You know what I mean? Like it was just so enriching. And so when at the beginning of this, right, you talk about like the Yoruba peoples being in Brazil, Cuba, right? Jamaica, right? And Haiti. I'm just like, I didn't even know that.
And the
That is
US,
incredible.
and the
Yeah.
US as well, and
Mm.
other parts of South America. Yeah.
Yeah. It's there was just so much like fascinating stuff, all of these little nuggets. But then when you think about it, it makes so much sense, right? Like
Yeah.
because it's the route, like the slave ships would go. And so when you look at that, because I remember looking at think it was sweet potatoes. I was cooking something, right? And I was like looking at sweet potatoes. And for whatever reason, I was on Wikipedia. I went to the Wikipedia page and it's like, oh, you can find sweet potatoes in all of these other countries. I'm like, how? I had no clue. But then when you look at the list of countries, you're like, okay, right. That's the slave routes, right? That's where the ships would go. And so you go, yes, there's going to be this bleed of culture going through because everyone is trying to, right, take the things that they hold dear to them. I forget, I think it's Falana who, when you were speaking with her and she was talking about, it's like music, religion, food, they're the things that you kind of take with you when you are
Absolutely. Yeah.
displaced.
Absolutely. 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 And they continue to exist today.
Yeah. Which is, man, it's such a thing, right? It's such a thing. And like with something like this, I mean, it is so fascinating, right? There is so much here, but it always just, man, I'm just blown away by it, right? You just think to yourself, how did this get going, right? Where did the acorn land, right, to birth such an incredible piece of work, right? How did you come up with this idea? Because I know you've worked on some incredible things throughout your career, like you had that In the Eye of the Spiral narrated by Annie Lennox, where you're just like, I mean, that's something, right? So like you're not new to expansive storytelling, right? But how did this come about?
Very good question. It really came from within. I mean, it's really started, as you said, in Haiti which is I was born there originally. And so I made the Haiti movie for a particular reason because I got tired of the negative narratives of Haiti. So I wanted to
Yes.
get a personal reconnection with my people in Haiti from New York. And Haiti is called In the Eye of a Spiral. I'm not going to go too deep in that, but people can learn more about it on my website, spiralah.com, which talks about the Haiti film. And in that movie, it was really the beginning of a journey. So the first journey is understanding the African heritage of the Haitian Revolution, the Haitian philosophy within Haiti, and the reason why it's manifested itself as a continuation of a chaos within of a fractal within the chaos of Haiti's post-revolutionary. As you both know, we had to pay reparations to France. We had to deal with a lot of negative, people not wanting us to succeed. So jumping to that story led me to Cuba because these are our next door neighbors. And from the Cuba, by the way, thank you, Annie Lennox. Thank you, Brian Eno's music. Imagine that, a Haitian film with Annie Lennox narrating and Brian Eno's music with rah-rah Haitian music in the film. That's we'll talk about that in another episode. So then from Haiti was Cuba, and Cuba dealt with the Cuban, it's called marvelous realism, which is a literary movement that was founded by Alejo Carpentier. What Carpentier was more interested is in one of his books, is called In the Kingdom of His World. He talked about the Haitian Revolution and how it impacted other parts of the world. And clearly it impacted Cuba during the Cuban Revolution, before and after Castro. How's that? So then from there, we looked at the two most important, I would say, energy sources in the Western Hemisphere, because they were key in a lot of other revolutions and emancipation of the Americas. So then it made all the sense for me to travel back to the homeland. So the homeland for me was, I knew my ancestors were from Benin, Togo, and Yoruba. So I wanted to say, okay, where do I start part 3, which is really part 1 now of this new series?
Yes.
There was only one man I wanted, and that was Professor Wole Soyinka, because I always go after these iconic characters. Haiti was an iconic man who looked like Hemingway, but he was Haitian. Cuba was an iconic writer who himself was Cuban, but really born in Switzerland. Shows you that it's a colorblind culture when you start dealing with people who understand the mythology and the cosmogony of Africans' heritage as it crosses the Atlantic and then crossing back. And of course, Professor Soyinka was the most important person I wanted in this film. I was very lucky as well to partner with Nigeria's leading Yoruba filmmaker, who himself is a Muslim Yoruba, but understand the entire. His name is Tunde Kelani. He's in the 70s, and he himself is one of the most prolific filmmaker. So the journey started in July the 21st. After months, we really started in 2020 before COVID, when I started writing my writer, Henry Drewal, and also my Cuban also consultant who became producer in Brazil, Zeca Ligero. For 5 months, we did all the diligence to make this really important piece. So when I was ready, I contacted Tunde and I said, Tunde Kelani, are you ready to do this for me? Call the professor, tell the professor I'm ready to film him. So the professor, within a week, came back to me. Within a week, during COVID, he said, okay, you have a date now, July 2, 2021. Imagine that. That is the peak of COVID. So, and then he said to me, you come and see me, there's no turning back. So I got to Abikoff and we started filming him. So that's the beginning of the story.
Damn. Yo, that's, whoa. Man, you start, there's no turning back. And
yeah,
like, I feel with something like this, that's very true, because once you learn stuff, right? Once you start peeling back the curtain, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, right? There's no unlearning this knowledge. And it's funny, right? I went to an event a few years back. Michelle Obama gave a talk at the Royal Festival Hall. And I brought my friend along, and man, it was crazy getting all the security to get in, but it was just packed out, right? She's the first time she's spoken in the UK. And so in this, like, leaving this event, you just felt like energized, right? And you just heard everyone talking and being like, oh my God, this is like, oh yeah, we should do this as a people, like we could do this and blah, 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 blah. I felt the same after watching this.
Thank you.
Because it's so rich in culture and history and just knowledge from all of these different people, that you just feel like, damn, we need to be like rivers. We need to be like rivers, man. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's the one thing that has always hit me from having these kind of conversations, right? You speak to different people from all over the world, from all different cultures, religions, you know what I mean? There are so many similarities that it always just seems crazy that we can be at odds, right? It's like, I think it's Wole, I feel it was Wole that said, like, he saw the similarities in Yoruba history and mythology with Greek.
Yes.
And that's something that is so true, right? When you look at so many different religions, the similarities are crazy. Like, every religion has got a flood story. You know what I mean? Every religion has got these beats that are very similar. You just change your name, you change your location, and it could be, you know, Jewish, it could be Muslim, it could be whatever, right? So it's just like, there are all of these things that should be bringing us together, but for whatever reason, you know, we get pushed apart. And I think a part of that is a lack of knowledge, because we're not taught about half of these things. So it's only through pieces of work like this that you start to be able to piece these things back together. You start to, you know what I mean, pull away, right, the cataract from your eyes, and you start to being like, damn, you know.
Well, you just gave the one of the key things that draw me to this film and this episodic film and series is this all Yoruba proverb that says a river that forgets its source dries up. And that's what you just talked about. And it's not just a Yoruba, it's a Hausa, it's a Wolof, it's a Congo, it's all the world's cultures should take that proverb and look at themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's what this film is about. You know, it's about also another beautiful saying is this: a river that never rests, sometimes changing, moving slowly, deep and quiet, or swiftly moving through turbulences. That's the turbulences of his phase right now. It took us 5 years to make this film through many turbulences, but we were continuing to move without looking back. And the river analogy as well is also the analogy of a lot of the uh, Yoruba mythology, Voodoo mythology, European mythology, Indian mythology, and all other cultures, that the deities are not as far apart as you think. Correct?
Yeah.
Manifesting water, manifesting air, manifesting fire, and earth. What that is, all the essential elements of who we are as a human. We are all, and another level is there's a French philosopher who I filmed in the first film. He said it right. He said we are on it. In French, he said, on est tous souchés sur la même racine. We are all the same part of this tree trunk, all the way down. We came from there.
Yeah. I think it's so true, right? It is so true. And you know, it's the one thing that I was always, you know, because I'm in school, we had like religious education. And when you're looking at all of these different religions, right, you're seeing this connective tissue. But the one thing that I always thought was kind of odd was Christianity, because you're going, there's only one God. And in a lot of these other religions, there's multiple gods, right? And that made so much sense to me, because it's just like, you know, it's like with politics, right? You have a politician to look after transport, another one for education, another one for, you know, whatever. Having one person do it all, that just feels it could never work, right? So it always seemed like that all of these other religions, it felt like I believe that a bit more, right? I can see that being more, you know, because it's just like you have these different people doing things. And especially because, man, I just grew up reading so much mythology, and like no one was perfect. And again, that kind of felt more realistic to me, right? Because it's just like no one's perfect, right? Everyone's got flaws and all of this, but it's about overcoming. It's about working through, you know what I mean? Trying to do better, trying to, you know, evolve and achieve and find that enlightenment.
Amen to that.
Oh man. So you said this took 5 years to make.
Yeah, it's 5. It really started in end of 20 when I started developing the concept with the writers, and then we filmed Professor Soyinka July 2021 at the apex of COVID. Landed in Lagos, and we drove straight up to his place where it was sort of like he lives alone in this isolated oasis by itself. It's called the independent state of British Soyinka, surrounded by obviously 5 million people around him in this other city called Abeokuta, which is equally as big as most cities around the world, but it's just a piece of Lagos at the end of the day. And we filmed him. The magic of this moment was I had probably an hour. It became 3 hours, and he became the contributing writer of the film. He gave me the middle, and he gave me the end, and he also gave me part 2, 3, and 4. That's the impact of meeting a Nobel winner in literature, a playwright, poet, and also activist. And from there, we went to the depth of the Yoruba culture. We went to Ile Ife, which is where the Yoruba is really officially were kind of started 800 years ago. We filmed the Oni, who is the Kabesi, which is the emperor king of Ile, of the Yoruba people. We also met with the Araba, who represents the divinity part of that culture. We were paying respect. I always pay respect when I make movies like this to the people and to the culture that I film. You have to pay respect. You have to give them equal respect to the same way you give them respect if you were filming the King of England in England, or somebody in the US, or somebody. Well, I'll skip that part this year, but you know what I'm talking about. And then from there, we then went back south again in the middle of COVID, by the way. Took the mask off. They told me, take your mask off. There should be another series about how Africa survived COVID, because it should have been a morgue. It was not. Everybody was living well and surviving while dealing with this case of horror, but they were really, really maintaining themselves. So from Abeokuta, we went to Ibadan, filmed there an artist, and then went back down. And then we went to the house of Fela. And that's when we met Seun, who is one of the sons of Fela Kuti. We wanted to honor Fela, which is an important thing, because I don't know if you realize, Professor Soyinka and Fela Kuti are cousins of the same. Yes, they're cousins.
Right.
So you got quite a talented family there.
Oh my, incredible!
Oh my! And Fela's mother is another pioneer in women's rights in Africa and the world. We all know that, but nobody talks about it now. But she's one of the women that started the women's right movement in Africa, basically. And then from Fela, we filmed Falana, and actually Falana came later, and then we filmed Molara Wood, who is an incredible writer herself. So she was a female energy of what we wanted to show is equilibrium in the film, because the Yoruba culture has no problem with women doing whatever they want in multiple levels. So that it's an equal standing. We also filmed a beautiful woman who is the Erelu, who's really like a queen of Lagos, but she comes from a really interesting family in the north. That's another beautiful woman that we met. And then from that point on, we had the beginning of the film. And then we went, because of the year later, it took a year to go, and then we went to Brazil. Brazil was incredible, because filming Gilberto Gil, Carlinhos Bown, and we had a woman we filmed who herself was an Afro-Brazilian artist, Margareth Menezes, who ended up becoming Minister of Culture after we filmed her in November. We filmed her in March, and then she became Minister of Culture. So we had de facto two ministers of cultures, both prolific artists, songwriters, musicians, who leveled up to the level of Minister of Culture. So look at the Black excellence of this product, defining Black excellence, and which is what this film is about. Definition of Black excellence, without showing the guns, the killings, all these other things that they portray our people to do all the time to be successful. So then that was the genesis. At that point, we started putting together this monster. It's a monster piece, because you have to deal with where does Soyinka, how much of Soyinka do we show? And the professor was very honest for me. He wanted me to focus his film not solely on him, but on these other people in the diaspora, and his vision of the concept of the diaspora is really a part of Africa. Yeah, because it continued to exist after the trade, and instead of vilifying it, this film should celebrate the success. And these characters you see, these protagonists you see in this film, have all been deeply impacted by African mythology, by African roots, by African culture, music, food, all of the above. I continue to say to you that they are probably as African as most Africans I met in Nigeria.
That, I think there's something about that, right? Because a lot of people are, I'm the focus, right? No, camera on me, right? And right? I think the quality of someone when they're like, no. Share it around, right? Highlight these people too. These people contribute. These people are building blocks of this thing. And I think that's so, like, it speaks volumes to who Wole is and where he is, right? Because you don't get there without having that kind of vision, that kind of mindset, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the music and the music in the film is important. It's part of the river. You dry if the music source dries up, then you got to keep the music flowing. They use the music and the drums to communicate themselves 400 years ago. That's how they got around to keep the traditions. And at that time, the people that enslaved them had no idea they were communicating. They were playing the drums, and the drums had messages.
Yeah. And like, I think that's a big thing, right? We know, like, even with things like capoeira, right? It's martial arts, but everyone thought it was dance, right? So you can mask a lot of things within, like, music and dance and all of this. It's a way of communicating. So it's definitely, right, a language that needs to be within, a story like this.
Absolutely. And think about Carnival in Brazil, Carnival in Jamaica, Carnival in Nigeria, Carnival in New Orleans, Carnival anywhere in the world. It's a manifestation of African deities.
Yeah.
And celebration. But as Carlinhos was saying, when you go to Carnival in Brazil, most of the people that are singing Yoruba, and they had no bloody idea they were singing it. So, maybe it's time to educate that they are and find out more about where it came from.
Well, it's nuggets like that I had no clue, right? I had no clue about, those kind of things. I didn't know that when you get into Brazil, there's all of these Yoruba kind of artifacts, right? It's just like, where else are you getting that information from?
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't teach us this stuff.
Thank you. And it's not just the Brazilians don't want to talk about it too much. The ones running the whole apparatus in Brazil, because they rather deal with it at each year in November for an event and then just to put it under the carpet. But when you go to Brazil, half the people I met that were in the Yoruba enclaves or in the Yoruba, they call them terreiros, which is like where the African culture continued to exist since the beginning of time, since they were forced into Brazil, for example. Half of those people in those terreiros are white Brazilian, mixed race Brazilian, American, sometimes from all colors and spectrum. But if you had to put that out in the national televisions of Brazil, you wouldn't hear anything about it. You have to go and find it yourself. But it's there. Yeah. There's 100 million Africans in Brazil still, which is larger than most countries in the world.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Craziness, right? It's funny because I only learned recently. Well, I found out about, like, the Haitian reparations during COVID. I was covering a news piece and I learned about that, which blew me away. That was just crazy. But I recently, earlier in the year, covered a documentary, Black Zombie, from Maya Anik Belwad, which is fantastic. It's a fantastic look at Haitian culture and everything like that. And in that, she covers touches upon like the Haitian Revolution. And right, when you look at that and how, as you said, it bled into other parts of the world, other cultures, right? It was this lighthouse that we don't have to be oppressed. We can, move the needle. And it's just these things we don't learn in schools.
No.
Right? They don't. There's hardly any documentaries and program. When you look at the amount of TV shows and films covering World War I, World War II, Vietnam, right? The Byzantine period, right? Just all of these different periods of history. But we don't look at these things. We don't talk about these things. And there is so much richness here. There's so much that can guide us and help steer us in a better direction. But it's just never covered. So it's just like, it is always, just a joy when you discover people like you that
Thank you.
have taken up the call, looking to put this stuff out there. But I wonder, when you kind of think to yourself, man, I'd like to tell this story. Do you wonder, right? Will people allow me to tell this story? Will people allow me to distribute this story? Like, what are the hurdles I'm going to face in getting this out to the world? Is that something that kind of crosses the mind at all?
Oh, it does every day. But I think once you choose a path, you just, maybe you think about timing. I'm hoping this time, Haiti hasn't been distributed yet. Cuba hasn't been distributed yet. It's been in many festivals. This film has already won a big festival. This film landed in Cannes like if it was a premiere because of the quality of the film, where everybody, if you talk to anybody that saw the film at Cannes, they'll tell you that. For the budget we put it in, they'll think it's over 3 times that amount. So I believe in the time of revisionism right now, fragmentation, and people just tired of the same, just endless, angry narratives, a product like that, like others as well, would hopefully be a welcoming opportunity to start educating people, entertaining people, activating people, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. That's why I think you're right. Listen, I'm hoping now this is a good time for me to push this harder. And I'm hoping that Cannes was good because we got a couple of people interested right now in taking this baby, so I can start working on the other 3 babies I want to work on, which we'll talk about later. So yes, my brother, but you being involved, and it's funny you said that, because yesterday I had an interview. Guess with who? It's a Polish, literary magazine and a TV station who loves Soyinka, and she watched the film. She's a Polish intellectual writer. She had the same exact interpretation of what she saw, but as a Pole living outside of Poland.
That's fantastic.
So it's fantastic. So people ask me, what are you doing speaking to Polish literary magazine? I say, why not? But that's the thing. People sometimes say this film is maybe too good for Africa. That's kind of what you hear sometimes. That's what you want to stop.
Yeah,
we have to open those doors now. Enough of this nonsense.
Oh, for sure. Because I think that's the thing, right? Because this is the thing, right? We don't know about this stuff. We don't get taught this stuff. I just remember when I was at school, like I was always just so hungry for information, right? And you have these history books that have all of this different stuff in, and I'm always the thing of, well, to know about this, you need to know about the things that fed into it.
Yes.
Right. And so I would oftentimes just read other chapters, and there was a chapter about like slavery, and I was reading that, and so in the lesson, like asked a question, and I put my hand up and I answered the question, and then I'm just like, and it kind of feeds in, because when you think about this and this and this, and it's just like, what are you doing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm answering the question. He's like,
Yeah.
wait, we're not dealing with that topic. I'm like, yeah, but it bleeds into this. And they're like, never do that again. Right? And you get shut down, right? So it's just like the only way sometimes people can know about something is when you take the story from the confines of two other cultures, two other places, right? So there's probably a load of Polish kids that have no clue about this, but because you spoke to a literary magazine in Poland, now they will.
Yes. Yes.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah. And the fact that she also said the mythologies that represented some of the Yoruba culture mythology and cosmogony, they had similar interpretations of their own people there, their own, so it's not that, there's nothing. The Nile and the river in Niger are not that far apart for 300 to 1,000 years ago for them to connect at some point and share ideas, which is why they did, by the way. People don't want to talk about that, about the Black Pharaohs and the other. That's another show right there. So,
Well, yes. I mean, when you look at the fact being, you have these things in like the pyramids, Inca temples, like there's all of this stuff that is very similar, but they're so far apart now, right? Like we trying to go that no one spoke to each other, right? Just because we want to say, oh, Christopher Columbus was the first person to sail around the world and discover. Was he? Or is it just the first person you deem to talk about? Because that's history, right? It's very revisionist, right? Like the victors always will change the narrative of something. It was I think it's Cornelius, where he talked about like people that destroy their own culture, right? And I remember watching something, I think it was like with the Iraq war, and you had like people destroying like historical things and temples and stuff. And that's what happens, right? It's shaping the narrative. People are like, no, this is what I want it to be. So we're tearing that down. We don't want people to know this thing. And it's something that's gone on throughout, history and time.
Kevin, you hit the bullseye. I spent hours with the professor, and the same question was asked by me yesterday by this young Polish writer. What animated the professor most when my time with him was exactly that. When he got animated when you saw in the film, when we talked about these shrines being destroyed, these cultures being destroyed, and he's not just talking about Yoruba. He's probably opening the door to all these other things going on around the last 50 to 20 years in the world, and keep people taking a very radical approach to just actually destroying cultures. Just like the one, in Washington, wanting to erase a civilization that's 3,000 years old. Okay, good luck with that. But it's happening, and I think now these kinds of films give an awareness to the Yoruba are just a door. There's a house behind that, and these are always other cultures in Africa or and outside that should be respected, that should be allowed to exist and coexist, and that have already continued to exist and being very successful in Brazil, in Cuba, in Haiti, in Jamaica, in Trinidad and Tobago, in South Carolina, in other parts of the world, and South America, and London. Look at little London, little Lagos in London. It's all Nigerians and from all different tribes living quite well together,
Yeah. I think that's the big thing. It's just, we want to diminish things, and it's ridiculous, especially when it's funny, right? I worked at a an obesity organization, World Obesity Federation, right? We were like the umbrella for every country's obesity association. So we kind of pulled it all together and dealt with policy and all of this kind of stuff. And we had a big congress in Vancouver. And so as part of that, I was doing this blog series with like people from all over the world that were going to be maybe speaking at our event, but kind of, you know, fed into the work, right? And I had this one with these doctors, and they were talking about obviously like obesity systems, right? But they were talking about knowledge and the fact that they were looking to work with these Cuban hospitals because, and this blew me away, in Cuba, they have like, I think it's like a 0% infant mortality rate.
Mm.
The only country where they're not losing like so many babies during childbirth. And it's just, you would think, instead of embargoing, right, and shutting the doors on that country, that you'd be like, yo, we will sit at your feet and learn, man. Like, give us this information. What are you doing? Right? What methods are you using? And it's just like, I think that's the thing. There's so many cultures that have got these incredible leap forwards in, you know, like health and science and maths and just all of these different things, but they're looked down upon. And so we're shutting ourselves off.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I filmed in Cuba, the second film, and it's the most educated island I've probably, or place I've been to. There's more doctors and lawyers and nurses per capita, but they, you know, obviously, I think there's a sense of pride, which is what we talk about in every film we make. The pride is that over 7 years of embargo, they continue to be they continue to be great doctors, great. So they're surviving, and somehow. That's a story, correct? They've been blockaded for no reason for allowing a revolution to take place. You know, whatever you say about that revolution, it's over now. But you have people living there. You have, you know, people wanting to succeed, and they can't afford to live, but it's still surviving. Yeah. But the strength of that culture, I believe, comes from their ancestries as well. They all understand where they come from. They're proud of the heritage. Regardless of what parts of Cuba you have African Cubans, you got Yoruba Cubans, you got Bantu Cubans, you got Italian Cubans, you've got Russian Cubans, and they live in this island. And they coexist.
It's fascinating, right? And especially, you know, when you have things like that, right? When you look at places like Jamaica and Trinidad, and you know, you have all like more cultures than you actually kind of know, right? Like, you know, the big Chinese populations in those places, and you know, like we have these places where you have a myriad of different people, of cultures working together, living together, existing. But instead of like using these things to highlight, right, that we shouldn't be fighting, we can live together, they want to keep us fragmented and try and act like, oh, we can't coexist together, when clearly we can.
Clearly.
Yeah. It's, you know, one of the things when watching this, and I think I mentioned it in my review, was to make such a compelling piece of work. It's not just about turning the camera on, right, and just capturing these moments in a bottle, right? It's not that, right? It's a skill, right? Being able to ask the right questions, being able to make people feel at ease and comfortable to be able to talk and express themselves in a way where they feel safe and open. So my question to you, Raynald, is where does that come from? The ability to tell stories like this, the ability to communicate and have people feel like so comfortable that they can express and you can just capture this gold, right? Because it is a skill. It is something not everyone has. Trust me, my friend. I've watched so many documentaries and things, and some of the questions asked, and like you can be like, oh man, that person looks uncomfortable, and that wasn't a great question, boy. So you have got a mad skill, man. Where does this come from? How did you nurture it and know that you had it?
That's, I was born when I was 3. My dad was exiled pretty much, and we lived in Senegal. And since I was 3, I was always surrounded by other parts. I mean, Russians, Africans, French. So my mother, my father, and my brothers and sisters were always like the sort of like the, people always knew we were not from there. Makes sense, even in Africa. So we've learned to understand cultures. We've learned to listen, and we love to do our research. So, and also you have to have a sixth sense of people. So when you're dealing with, I would say, like Professor Soyinka, Gilberto Gil, and all these other people that you film, but I film, it's really, it's beyond the documentary. It's really getting them into character. To get somebody into character, you have to make them feel comfortable. So you really don't really start with questions. You start to get to know them ahead. For a while, you do their research on them. But at the same time, they have to be comfortable with you when they meet you for the first time. So that's a hard skill. People either like you, if they don't like you, they warm up to you. So, I don't know what skill that is. I think there's a magic to that. You have to be a magician and understand the human condition to get people to open up to you. That's all I can tell you. That it's built into you, but it's also instinct. So I came with Professor Soyinka with over 175 questions I wanted to ask him, but I started working him, seeing him and understanding his energy. I understood where he didn't want to go after 1 or 2. So I didn't want to he's a very modest. He's also a very private guy. I was not going to talk about his life, his wives, and whatever his kids were. That's none of my business. But I also let him drive the show because he had a message to tell me. That's why he invited me to this event. But he wanted to talk about his reverse journey and the diaspora. So then I let a lot of the other stuff go. I could have spent 6 days with him talking about his time in prison, his time in the Biafra War, his involvement in trying to stop a civil war that led millions of people. I didn't want to go there because he didn't want to go there. He probably talked about it already. So he's a man of few words. You come in, but at the same time, you give him the honor, you give him the presence. But at the same time, you also let him know that you've been well trained on who he is. You've done a lot of research, and each of them, regardless if a Neil DT like him, to a Falana, to Margareth Menezes, you have to learn who they are. And in Brazil, I made an effort to speak Portuguese to them as well, so they understood that I understood the culture. Very important. So you also have to bring yourself down to where you are. I mean, even if I speak 3 words of Wolof, I did a movie in Senegal, I'll do a few words of Wolofs just to get them warmed up. And as I said, I had to honor the kings of Ife, the king of Ife. I went there. It brought a lot of mileage for me to bring in the monarchs, because they're very, very celebrated in these cultures. I didn't want to bypass that. So there's a diplomatic level, there's understanding, and there's not like Mike Wallace talking down to you. It's it's what I'm saying. It's that's not going to work with me. I don't just talk down to people. I make them open up first. And I brought him a nice bottle of wine. He likes wine, so that helped. His Bacchus. He's really his Bacchus. He calls himself Bacchus because he drinks more wine than water, and he's 91.
Oh man, Yo, I think I think there is a lot to that, right? Because I think it's funny, a lot of the times with these kind of things, right? If you're talking to certain PR agents, they'll be like, send us a list of questions. And it's just like, I don't have questions like that, because you can go in and ask certain things and people are on edge because they don't necessarily want to talk about that, or you know what I mean? And it's just like, when you let things flow, the things people initially didn't want to talk about, they suddenly can be like mad open to talk about those things, because you've created an environment where now they're comfortable and they feel like you're not trying to manipulate the conversation and, you know, how this is all gonna be. And so you create a freeness for people to communicate. And I think that was really, really just evident with every person that you talk to. They all just, because I think you can tell when people are feeling open and happy, right? You can, oftentimes you'll watch things and you can see a tension there, right? And the way it's then cut and edited, you'll be like, oh, I
can't use that. I can't use that. No, that can't go.
yeah. But this just felt so loose and free.
Yeah.
Which then you know, I think resonates to the viewer.
Yeah.
Right.
How much time do we have?
As much time as you want.
Oh, I love it. Because I also want to give credit to where it's deserved. I had a great team of research writers. Henry Drewal, he's a white American writer, but he's also an incredible source of knowledge of Yoruba culture. He himself is a very high level in the divination system of Yoruba priests himself. So he's been doing it for 50 years now. I've had Tunde Kelani, who was incredible to help me guide me to understanding Professor Soyinka, because he's been his filmmaker for many, many years. I've had an incredible director of photography, Jack Burton, who himself, as you can imagine, made some beautiful colors and photographed photography of these characters that we filmed. Jack is a white Englishman, but Jack used to work with Bob Geldof. So I picked the guy who's not scared of going to Nigeria and shoot with me. Because he also was not scared of COVID. I said, you may get COVID. So I don't have insurance for that. So it's up to you. He says, I'm in. Most people wouldn't go with me. You know that was 2021. Okay.
But the funny thing about that, though, Raynald, is right, there's where everyone was just always, because I remember like everyone's talking about a mask and you can't go to places, but then you heard the sun kills COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to a hot country. Like, what are we doing? Like, you know, as you said, right, there wasn't swathes of people wiped out in a lot of these places. So that speaks to like the sun, that speaks to health, because that was another big thing that we learned. If you're healthy, you can fight these things a lot easier. Right, it doesn't.
And being outside, they're outside all the time. They're outdoors, so they're not congregating in one space for 20 hours a day, which is what happened in COVID. People were hiding on their apartments, and then the thing was spreading like wildfire. You know?
Yeah.
No, and so luckily the thing is, it's the ability to have the instincts to bring the right people on particular film projects. And people that understand the vision, and they go and they support you all the way to the end. The editor that put this film together, and is a young white Los Angeles. When I was at the Pan African Film Festival, I brought him to the stage. People were shocked. They're like, "This guy?" I said, "Yeah." You know. I'm a colorblind brother, you know that, but I believe in black excellence. Black excellence doesn't mean, but you got to get the best people at the right time to get the best thing for you, you know. But it's not
Definitely.
because you're, you got also have the instincts to know who you want to work with,
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the big thing, right? I mean, people get that mixed up,
They do.
right? Because it's like Black excellence is like, promoting the excellence within Black culture, but it doesn't mean you diminish your work by hiring people that aren't as good as, right? You
Yeah.
bring the best people available, and it doesn't really matter where those people come from if they share your vision, right? If they've got the
Absolutely.
talent to get the job done.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, you put together one stellar freaking team.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Like, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, where did you kind of learn that stuff? Right? Because I think a lot of times people, don't necessarily, and I feel we've seen it, right? You can see films and TV shows, and there's some great things, there's great components, but then other components of it, you feel like, if only they had, because that bit is letting things down a little bit, right? So it's just like, where do you gain that knowledge that, it's about working with the best people, and the best people, who cares where they're from?
Yeah, I think it goes through the territory. The first film was a trial and tribulation, the Haiti film. It took a lot of components to actually make it work, and on a limited budget, though. Make sense? The
Yeah.
Cuba film also on a limited budget. It was a lot of different components as well. I'm not going to name anything. I'm just going to say it was the first two were harder to conceptualize and complete. This one was easier because I knew that what the budget I had, I could get the best director of photography, even if I had to pay extra. I could also work with. I initially started working in London actually in Belfast, just put together the first cut with
Right.
Rupert Hall. I went to Belfast, in Hollywood, Belfast, when I had, because I wanted somebody senior in the industry to help look at the film with me and understand how we're going to put this beast together. So
Yeah.
he was more of an intellectual. He really helped create with me the key elements, and the fact as well, him and the professor had the same ideas. The professor always said to me, "You must be in this film." I didn't want to be in this film. I didn't want to be the narrator. I didn't want to be one of the protagonists. But he kept telling me, this is your story." And what ends up being is this film is a story of reconnecting with one's journey,
Mm.
ancestors. And I started this film in Haiti because I had my reasons to, and then I went to the professor to get some answers. To put it bluntly, that's a film. And I
Mm.
got the answers, and then I was curious to go to Brazil to see if his points about Brazil were true. They were manifested clearly, visually, intellectually, spiritually, to my right in front of me. Okay, so it's really just sort of like budget, learn from your errors, okay, and continue with your instincts, and spiritually as well, because I believe in Haiti they say the snake, when the snake inside me woke up after the earthquake in Haiti, and it continues to march me in the direction for my ancestors will be proud of, and that's what I'm continuing to do. And we'll talk about part 2 and 3 after that. So yeah,
Mm. Yeah. Oh man, for sure.
you're
I
getting
think
goosebumps
that's,
there.
yeah, no, because I think narration is always a big thing.
Mm,
I think it's why people love a David Attenborough doc, right?
yes,
Because it's the cadence of the voice, right? It's the way
yes,
it's all put together. It just works. And
yeah,
I think we've watched documentaries where they've tried to do a similar thing and it doesn't work. The narrator, like whatever it is, the cadence, the voice, the person, I don't know, but it doesn't work. It doesn't translate the same.
yeah,
But I think it works, right? And I think it's a nice way into it all, right? Starting with your journey of discovery, right? That's the key to get into everything. And it's a nice little hook, as it were, for the viewer. And so it just feels very fitting to have you involved like that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't my first intent. But I listened, and I wanted more. I wanted to be more Hitchcockian and just have a little shot at the end. But Professor said, no, 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 no. And Gilberto Gil said the same thing as well. No, 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 no. You must be part of this. You brought this here. You be part of it.
Well, when wise heads say it, you gotta listen, right?
These are wise heads.
Yeah. How long did like the editing process take? Because I imagine you had hours of footage.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. It took a while. I mean, with the first chunk, probably 6 weeks to actually more than 6 weeks. It was 4 weeks to put together a sizzle, which was another beautiful moment of just putting this first piece together. And then in 2024, we hired this Belfast company to do for 6 weeks or 7 weeks or 8 weeks to help put together the outline of the film. Does it make sense? The outline. And so that helped me define the beginning, the middle, and the end, and what was necessary and what was needed. And what was needed was then we had to use a lot of, because at that point, we're not going to go back to Nigeria. So there was a lot of missing footage that we wanted. So we had to be creative about that. And then in 24, we came out with a final piece. And then Nicholas, I believe, spent another 6 weeks actually 8 weeks, really putting this final piece together. And then we started working on the music, starting working on the licensing, and it took a while. It's a feature, 64 minutes. It could have been 90 minutes as well, but 64 was we came with that because at 90 we didn't have enough. If we had to do 90, we had to go back and shoot in Nigeria. Does it make sense?
Right. Yeah.
And then we're also thinking about living enough now for part 2, 3, and 4, because a lot of the stuff we've also had in interviews in part 1 will be used in part 2.
Okay. Yes, because I think that's the thing, right? You get to the end and it's like to be continued. And there are definitely times when, you might watch a film and it's like to be continued. And you're just like, I mean, we were just getting like, what are we doing here? Right? You didn't give us enough to end at that point. Right. But I think with this, it's kind of a relief. Right. And let me quantify that. Right. Not a relief is you're like tired or bored. But when you get so much incredible information, stuff that you had no clue about, you want to absorb that. Right. You want time just to be like, whoa, I had no clue. Man, all right, let me ruminate on this. Let me talk with my peoples. Let me share this. Let me, like do extra research and look in myself and maybe visit these places. And like there's stuff that you want to do, right? So I feel it ends at a point that gives you that breathing space, right? And you're like, oh, boy, like you're thirsty for more, right? You're hungry for more as well, right? So it's not where you're like, oh, I'm sick of this, right? You're at this point where you're like, whew, oh man, like you're tingling, right? You're like, oh, there's all of this information, this knowledge now flowing through you, and you want to express it, but you want to add to it, right? And you're now waiting to top it up with that next hit, that next, dose of dopamine that you're gonna give us with like part 2 of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that. It's you have to absorb. There's a lot of stuff in there, and you have to breathe.
Yeah.
You know, and the magic of the film takes you over. It takes you over. You dream about it, and the next day you think about what it comes and visits you. It's not by accident; it's visiting you. It could be you. You may have a dream about your ancestor coming at you saying, "Get your shit together, buddy. Get off to Kenya." All right, you've seen this piece. It's still our piece. And you're right. That's what it is. That's the source of part two, is getting people now to see themselves. And should I talk about part two a little bit, or you want me to finish the? You have more. Let's talk more about part one first. You have anything more to say about that? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it definitely makes you think, right? Because my background is Yoruba.
You see, I didn't know that, but I had the feeling you did.
Yeah, no, but I don't know really any of it, right? Because I was adopted, so you know what I mean. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't know about, but then like there's a lot of stuff where it's kind of it's kind of a messy kind of situation, right? Because essentially, like after I was born, like my dad said to my mom, "That's not my kid. Like, why is he like?" You know what I mean? So that can't be mine. So you either stay with me or you get rid of the kid. Right. So that was the whole thing. So there's kind of being this kind of weird kind of thing about like trying to look into it, and what I'm saying? So, but watching this, like it definitely like makes you think, I need to know more, right? I need to kind of peel that curtain back and like, you know what I mean? Make that kind of journey, because I think that's the power of it, right? Because it's just like when something makes you do the thing that you might not have wanted to do for all these years, like there's something about that, and I think it's like with just all the people that you talk to, the musicians and just everyone, and everyone's going to take something else away from this, right? You don't necessarily have to be like Nigerian, Cuban, Brazilian, any of those things, right? Don't have to be black. You could be wherever. But I think there's so much here for the viewer to be able to emphasize with, to be able to take on board, to kind of go, oh, yes, I get that. I understand that. I see myself in that. That I think this is going to, Matt, it's like, like, because I remember I used to, I was doing geography at school, and you learn about rivers, right? And the fact that the change of direction, there's all these rivers that used to have this one route, but over the years and centuries, like they've changed their route, their direction. And it's a slow thing, it's a slow erosion, right? And it's something like this, it creates those ripples, right? It can break down those barriers, it can get people thinking. And it's not necessarily the slow erosion of a river. I think it's a faster process, but it is something that can change the thinking of people. I just remember when Brymo was I believe said that he's hoping for a point when Nigeria puts aside all the other stuff, right? Like like the need for apologies and reparations, and just like, look, we're just going to be on our own and strive forward. And I'm like, I get that, Now, I do believe that with everything that's happened, right, the strip mining of resources and all of this, there should be, there should be compensation. There should be stuff, but I don't know if we're ever going to get it, right? So it's just like having the mindset of pushing forward and striving. But it's just like all of these different faults. I think these things will connect with people, and I think it will spearhead like a movement of change,
I truly hope so. I think the interdependency on, as Soyinka also said, for the thing, look at Haiti, cutting the umbilical cord from its over reliance on, for example, the US or other countries in Africa, on their over reliance on Western powers.
Mm,
And the country, that is a continent that has over 50% under 21 years old. Think about that.
mm,
And they're all getting to know that they are waking up now. They are starting revolutions at that age. They don't read the New York Times and the Daily Telegraph. They get their own information because of the internet.
yeah.
But they have their own ways of evaluating what's not right. So, if, as I say, this is not the time. This is a time where you have revisionism at its highest level. It's a good time to come in with stories like that.
Mm, yes. Yeah. And as you said, when we're not dependent on someone else to tell us news and information and whitewash the information that we're getting, people can find out the truths themselves, with technology, with the internet and these kind of things. And I think it is about breaking free from shackles. So, but that means breaking free from one thing and not shackling yourself up to other countries, right? Like selling all your mines to China, for instance. Like, you don't want to do those things. Like, it's about, if you want independence, it's about being independent and not being beholden to all of these other people.
Yeah.
But damn it, man, did an
But
incredible job here.
but I have to tell you, you've moved me by your personal story. I'm hoping that this triggers your. It's a painful story that you may want to peel the orange a little bit and see, get some answers to what you just talked about your personal heritage. And this is what I hope this film does to everybody, that that can question that and say, should I? It's a win to be able to say, I may peel the orange now. Just thinking about it, because after triggering, the film triggers emotions for every person that's different. We're all galaxies, so we all have a galaxy in us. So your galaxy, somebody else's galaxy may decide a different way. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like, everyone's going to have a different reaction, a different experience, but all of those reactions, all of those experiences are important, right? And they all speak to a thing, and it's about being able to share those things and have conversations, and what I mean, that group learning, that group understanding, because it's all very informative, and I think that's the beautiful thing about this kind of storytelling, about being able to shine the light on these different aspects of the world and history, and right, just these moments. It's like, as I was saying earlier, it's not an easy journey to take, right? Because you think about, how am I going to distribute this, right? Who's gonna be able to see it, right? And all of those thoughts must be there. But then when you do get it out and you win awards, right? You won a big award at PAF, which must have been just, You know what I mean? Like the moment you win something like that, right? I feel that must be so you know what I mean? It just makes you go, this was worthwhile, right? Like people can see the vision that we had, right? We're not just shouting into the wind here. Like, what was that like for you?
Well, it was. Listen, I had a feeling we were going to win something. I don't know why. I just felt it. It's not like I always have a feeling when I go to these festivals. And I also felt it was the right time, the right timing, and I felt that the Pan Africanism Festival, with a film that really deals with Pan Africanism, should look very, very deeply and closely at the two of the biggest Pan of characters in the film are living legend, and the other one is gone, which is Fela. So you got the ghost of Fela, you got Soyinka, you got Jill, and you've got these credible characters around it. And I think the fact that Professor Soyinka himself was not allowed back in the US because he had said some satirical things about the man running the shop there, shame on him for not allowing a 91-year-old, back with a visa, as if Soyinka's message was anything negative to the world right now. This is what you're doing. So I think all that was an awakening for a lot of people that it's time to celebrate the stories. But to me, the most amazing piece of that was the fact how Black America reacted to my movie. I didn't think there was going to be such a show of love, because most of the film, as you see, deals with the diaspora in Brazil, Haiti, Cuba. But then I think everybody they all watch. I was watching it. It's like 350 people in the room, and it was not once noise in the audience. But I believe that and then there was like a call to arms at the end, and we talk about when the professor says, "Then we're going to go back to the U.S. part two." And it was overwhelming at the end when I got out of the theater. People were yelling at me, "When's the soundtrack coming? When are you coming back to South Carolina? What about Mississippi? What about this? What about that?" They got the message, and they loved it, because a lot of them didn't want to peel that orange.
Yeah.
They want to leave it up to 1865 or 1800 or whatever it was that came in the US, or in 1772. But all of them say, we want to go deep here. We want to know more. But we want to get involved too. So I think that's what PAF did. It brought it to me. There is a huge market to me, which is the biggest market, is the US, the African diaspora and African Americans who are willing to take those trips down to the coast to see, Bahia, Senegal. So let's get more involved. And that's kind of, to me, but to me, it was the best festival for the film to kick off the year on Black History Month at PAF in Los Angeles, Tinseltown. Okay.
That is definitely a start, right? That's a perfect way to kick things off.
You kick it off that way, you couldn't kick it off any better than that, because it's a proud film. Proud people in this film, it's a proud name of the festival, and it's been going on for 34, 37 years. Imagine that. Right after the civil rights movers, basically, fresh from that, they had that festival.
Nice.
What was burning before that? It's incredible. It's major stuff.
Yeah, and being part of that legacy,
Yeah.
Whew. Man, and then getting Cannes. Like, what was that like when you found out that you get to be a part of Cannes?
Well, it was work in progress. We wanted to be there, and then we just got a really great opportunity to show at one of the big pavilions. I got to thank the woman that runs that pavilion. It's called the Afronova, the Pavilion Afronova, which is a part of the Cannes Marché. And I think the timing was perfect, because a lot of the films that couldn't make it as well, because it's very expensive. Cannes right now, it's not an easy place to present the film. We presented on the Croisette, which is where, as I said, you had the red carpet from the big film studios just down the road. Our film was showing. We gave, and then the fact that we were showing at the Marché, which is where there's thousands of people, accreditations were there. They knew about the film. The ones that couldn't make it heard about it. So we were on the big stage, and we deserve to be on the big stage, you know.
Oh, no doubt,
So, you
man.
know, we deserve. I mean, Soyinka deserved to be honored in that place, but you know, let the French figure out why he's not as important as, you know, I don't know who else, but you know, that's their business, not mine. You know, he does not lose sleep about that. You know, he's just happy that the film is making its movements, and it's eventually, and the whole purpose of the Cannes Festival is to close the film and find distributors, and we are working on that
Yes.
right now. That was my sole purpose, and as well to give the honor of the man in a stage like that, get his name recognized again, because he's not on the internet mouthing away on YouTube. He's a very discreet guy. Other people do the talking for him at his age, and I'm willing to do it for him, to be part of that journey. And also Jill and these other great characters in the film.
Yeah. Oh man, like so many great people, and like the different generations that you get to hear from, right? Because you get these wise heads, but then the next generation coming through, like you hear from them. So it's just like, this isn't just a time capsule. This is something that is transcending, you know. And I think that's the very important, right? People can see that like it doesn't stop here, right? This is continually growing and moving and evolving, you know.
Yeah, and the younger generation is as articulate as the older generation in how they perceive themselves, their culture, their music, their work, and their piece of this ecosystem where they exist in. And most of them have lived in Cuba and Canada and returned. And that's how Afrobeat was so successful during COVID. A lot of us young, Ashake, Burna Boy, Thames, you know, all these other guys and gals, they're working in the studios in Lagos, but then they were fearless. They started touring before anybody else did during COVID. so they started blowing up, correct? Even more.
Yeah.
They had their songs out. And you know, I go to LA, I hear Afrobeats music. I was in Buenos Aires, I hear Afrobeat music. I was in Brazil, I hear Afrobeat music. So, you know, they're doing something right, correct?
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. It's like when they come and like I think Ashake did
Ashake, yeah.
yeah, he did the O2 recently.
Sold out too, correct?
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
days. It's
yeah,
busy as hell. It's
yeah.
crazy. You know, which tells you so much,
And I think
right?
Burna is performing with Shakira for the World Cup. Yeah.
Which is
Hopefully they'll have
huge.
his visa, let him to come into the country, you know.
Yeah.
This is where we are right now. All right. We are hoping.
I mean, they should do. They should.
Yeah, they have no choice. He's performing.
Yeah.
You know,
Incredible.
I give you an example. I mean, friends of mine who run the African Film Festival in New York, half the visas were that they had paid tickets or directors to show their movies in New York for the New York African Film Festival, which is itself another 37-year-old festival led by Mahen Bonete, an incredible woman who's been fighting the cause a good fight, and she has all key African filmmakers showcasing in New York, as you know, where nobody else would see their film but in her festival because they're not shown on these other streaming companies. That's why people actually go there to see the best. Some of the films are incredible, you know. But apparently 2 or 3 directors had been green-lighted, but now they couldn't come because their visas was not, you know, can you imagine that? Movies already in the festival and you can't come for no reason, but, you know, I just, you know, anyway, that means we are doing something.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. Like when they let certain people into countries that have done multiple insane things, but then they won't let, you know, an actor, director, musician in. And you're just like, what's the difference here? What's going on?
It doesn't make any sense to me, you know.
No.
But again, I'm here to push our film, and that's what my focus is in this current moment in time,
Yeah.
this geography in time.
So do we have more festivals lined up right now?
Yes, we do, but I think I need to decide in June before I announce, because right now the focus is to get to wrap down, to get the distributors figured out for in June, hopefully, and then at that time work with them and say what are the 2 or 3 more strategic festival we should go in the next 6 to 12 months,
Yeah.
because these take time, as I'm right now in the process of veering towards developing and starting to look for partners to make part 2, 3, and 4. That's going to be my focus after June. So
Mm.
there'll probably I want to do something in the UK. I want to do something at the end of the year in Europe. More, I mean, it's somewhere outside of the France. I believe that we were doing something at the end of the year in Brazil. Not sure which one yet. That we also working with one of our executive producers is putting together an interesting concept of taking the film on road trip in the US, showcasing in many all the big cities like Atlanta, Houston, Los Angeles. Los Angeles, we have to come back, because from the level of interest in the people, that people are like, when can we see it again?
Yeah.
We could do another probably 4 or 5 big cities in the US, and of course Canada, Toronto. We'll do something there at some point, festival or not festival. Universities as well want to show this as well, but
I
it's
can
all really
imagine.
based on the deals we strike. It's how to lock down festival until you lock down your distributor. You talk to
Yeah.
them, they'll tell you this is a strategy we should go for. I've learned from my lessons now. Let the guys who want to sell you tell you the next step.
Yeah.
I've done the hard work now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there will be
I
4
mean,
festivals.
what would be incredible, right? To do the film tour and then like bookend it with musicians performing, like Falana and other people performing, and then like maybe have like Professor Wole and some other people doing talks and literature, like poetry and different things, and just make it this like encompassing, cultural, like storytelling event. You know what I mean?
That is by the way, Kevin, you spot on. That's the plan. That was plan 2 after we locked down. You know what? Plan 2, and I think as important as a festival is really the pocket shows, film pocket shows, and making it in a whole experiential event.
Mm,
So you've got the
yeah.
music, you got the film, and you've got the literary piece and the poetry and the playwriting, and then at the end you end up with a jam. So
Yes.
I'll give you an example. We had an event in New York, which was co-sponsored by a bunch of people that supported the film, and then it was at the Africa Center around UN Week. So we started with the film at the beautiful Africa Center, but then at the end of the night, because there was another event from the boards of Afro-Bank. These are big banks, these big deal. We ended up with one of Bob Marley's great grandson performing at this event. So, but it looked like, I said, I would love this to go in 4 or 5 cities. Imagine that. And then the Marley boy wanted to perform with Sean Kuti and the other Kuti brothers. I said, well, make it
Ooh.
happen.
Oh, god damn.
Imagine that.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
the
That'd
Marleys and the
be
Kuti
something.
together.
Whoa.
London would
Whoa.
love that. Make it okay, Kevin. You make it happen. Talk to your boys in London and gals.
Oh man. That would be incredible. Like just all of that, like some, African and different culture, food trucks, you know what I
And then
mean? Just
Brazil, and then don't forget
woo.
Brazil, and then
Yeah.
Bring Brazil to the table. You know, bring
Oh,
Anita or Isa, all these big Brazilian artists. Gilberto comes in. Carlinhos Brown,
mm,
you saw Carlinhos, how great he is. He goes to
yeah.
the carnival in London every year. He plays in Notting Hill every year. Carlinhos
Oh.
Brown, yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be something. That'd be something
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. But how do you top this though, Raynald? Like, you know what I mean? Like you say, you this part 2, 3, and 4. Like, how do you build upon, you know, this incredible foundation?
Well, you continue from what the professor's vision is, because he sort of said he kind of alluded in between in the second half of the film and the end of the film that he had this vision of a reverse journey, not a reverse routes. We're not putting people back in shackles back to the African continent. It's a reverse journey of celebrated, not just artists, because we already know Stevie Wonder has already gone to Ghana with his Ghana passport. Lauryn Hill has a visa, has a Benin thing. So we're looking at characters at that level, plus a couple of interesting personalities, not necessarily just Yoruba, from other tribes, and then sort of like focusing that journey back into the homeland with very specific destinations in Nigeria and maybe one other two other countries, maybe turning into three parts. A French-speaking African journey, and then another journey with an English-speaking heritage, and we're not forgetting the eastern side of Africa as well, on the southern side. So imagine then, sort of like taking everybody's answers to me that keep asking me, what about us? But the next pieces will be less of the masters that you saw in part one, more of the people like me with a concept of rediscovering themselves. It could be you, Kevin. It could be you. Okay. You'd be a great character in that. And you're such an articulate brother anyway. So think about that. So that's imagine, but it's a major that is a big production. You're talking about boats, ships, you're talking about multiple locations, multiple characters. You're really talking about defining the script so you don't go all over the place. And you're talking about character development and finding out of maybe 100 people we have on the list on the 5 or 10 you want for that journey. And then you want people, and then you're also looking at finding where that journey ends for part one and part two. The journey in the second part was initially based on a celebration in Lagos, in one of the most deified horror place where all the enslaved took off to the Americas, and turning it around into a celebration. And you know what you just talked about. We have enough musicians to do an incredible end of the show behind the scene, iconoclast kind of moment, but I'm not going to give it away. I'm just giving you the big picture. Right now it's in development, but it's going to happen. People can take notes and copy the concept, but I think we've got the source to make this work. And that's why I want to start in July developing. And then also on this particular point, I want to thank, this film would not have been made. I'll tell you how it was made. Rotimi Alakija, who is the son of one of the most powerful women in Nigeria, business Nigeria. She's a major oil company in Nigeria. Rotimi is a son. Rotimi Alakija and his brother were our main first investors. They put the money down without even seeing accounts. They just knew this is what they wanted to do, because they themselves wanted a legacy for their kids and their grandchildren. Them being Yoruba, them having also cousins in Brazil and who were crossing over and rebuilt parts of Lagos in the 1800s. So they wanted to know more about that journey for themselves. So they put half of the budget of the film, which helped get us to year 2 and 3, and then we raised additional money from Beatrice Mzabasi, was a major lawyer in the African banks and boards, and then we got as well funding from two friends. One is white Brazilian, the other guy is American. Okay, so and then the last one came from an American investor, who was living in Harlem, he was the last one to come in last year. And he loved the project so much. I'll put finishing funds, so you have to put something together. But you have a beautiful montage, which is why the film is about not just the Rotimis of the world. It's about the Black American diaspora. It's about the Brazilian diaspora. It's about the white American. So you got all these characters in there in the film that are investors. When you see who your investors are, you know where you're going with this film. It's beyond color at that point.
Yeah. Oh man, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's
So
fantastic.
that's part 2 and 3. But part 2 and 3 it's going to be a different approach. We're going to be dealing. We're going to find strategic co-production partners, major production houses or studios who want to see the story told. Of course, it would be working with them in conjunction with the concept note and the film and the script. And then obviously, we'll have definitive budgets for these locations to shoot.
Yeah.
And then, obviously we'll like to have this part 1 already out as we're working on part 2 and 3. Does it make sense?
Oh, for sure.
It's called The Returnees.
Right. Man, like I also think, right, when you think about like there's these really popular shows, right, that look at ancestry.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they're very popular, right? So having that as kind of, a part of what this is, right? That's just such a compelling component, right? Watching that return, that discovery of, finding the footprints of who you are.
Yes.
That's just
and coming from a living back to celebrating back, as opposed to the ancestry talks about all the dead people that crossed over, eventually find out who they are. We're talking about now a reverse journey. The people that outlived the trade have multiple generations in one place, and I want to know more about what happened, where their cousins are. Because remember as well, not just the whites were the ones that enslaved. Some of the tribes in Africa, which is what Soyinka duly said, we enslave, we put our own people to the slave trade. But let's not forget that.
That's a big thing, right? That's something else that you learn, right? You have to understand that
it takes two to tango, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So this, man, the fertile ground for this is just incredible. And I just think it's like a lot of times it's proof of concept. That's what people want. They want to be like, I mean, before we invest, like, can you do this thing? Like, what, right? Having this, right? Having Amazing Grace, like you said about the budget, like watching this, you don't think it's a small budget, right? You think that, boy, this must be from a huge friggin' production company. Because it looks incredible, right? It's really well put together.
Thank you.
So anyone would look at this and be like, wait, you made it on this? Fuck. Okay, we will back you. It's like, just what you've done here is incredible, right? Just the idea for what you want to do is incredible. Like, I feel like, man, if people don't want to invest, shame on them, because this is one of those things that you think you can use in schools, right? Playing in universities, like it's an education tool. It's just, it's something that speaks to you spiritually, it's something that speaks to you culturally. It just hits on so many different levels, right? These are the kind of things that you want out in the world. So, and being able to package it, right? If I was like a Disney, a HBO, a Paramount, and you're like, we've got this film, we've got this documentary, and then we're looking to do 2, 3, and 4, you'd be like, yo, being able to have that, right? Having that is just so rich, right? That is just, man, like I feel anyone with any sense should be all over this.
Well, you and I think that way. I don't want to name. There was one. I'm not going to quote them on this show, but there was somebody that wrote me an email, loved the project, and then I had the audacity to say to the other guy, "Oh, there's not enough iconic people in there." And I'm like, "Are you effing kidding me?" I mean,
Oh
this
my
is not iconic. We are not dealing with, you know, a gangster from who's known in the, in the drug trade, which could be. I'm not doing something on barbecue in Haiti. That's
Mhm.
iconic for you, correct? That's how you see my culture. But you're the wrong brother to put this film out. Am I right, Kevin? You know?
Oh, that is, look, when you think about all the films on Al Capone, all the documentaries on Al
I know.
Capone, Trey brothers, right? When you've got all of these looking at people who aren't good people, right?
No, they're
Not
killers.
an
They're psychopaths.
example. Yeah, it's not an example you want to put out into the world. You'd be like, little Johnny, look at these two brothers. They were maniacs. You could be like them, right? That's not the shit, right? But when you could have people that, like Gil and Soyinka, you know what I mean? Just all of these incredible people, all these voices. I mean, people always talk about like Barack, right? About his cadence, right? That you might not agree with all the things that he did, but the way he carries himself is presidential,
Yeah.
right? Like everyone in this, the way they carry themselves, like you just be like, yo, just continue talking, man. I'm just gonna sit and just absorb this. You know what I mean? Like these are the people that you would want your kids and, you know what I mean, nephew, just all to learn from, to be like, this is an example. This is someone that you can look at and go, oh, I want to be like this person, right? I want to live my life like this person. I want to strive and evolve and challenge myself like this person. You are putting on screen lighthouses. You know what I'm saying? You are
Thank
putting on
you.
screen people that are guiding lights, people that you look at and you just go, damn. If only I could be a fragment of who you are.
Thank you. Exactly. And that's not iconic enough. Tell me, yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, that person's got worse eyesight than me. You know what I mean?
I'm not making names today, but I'm taking notes.
I mean, that sounds a bit like the person that made the Star Wars deal. You know what I mean? Be like, okay, George, we're gonna give you all the rights to the merchandising because we don't believe in this.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. 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 And you know, when you do the analogy of his film now, this is a Star Wars. Part one is the Yoda masters and the Jedi
Mm,
masters talking to you, and
yeah.
part two, three, and four are the young Jedi's going out to see if they can reconnect with their planets and galaxies that were
Mm.
allegedly lost forever. But at the same time, I'll be honest with you, Kevin. We are in a race against time, even in Africa, of these cultures. So we need to preserve them. We have to.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Like when you think about all the languages that we have lost, all the cultures we have lost, right? I've done a lot of looked at a lot of documentaries, had conversations with people like within the Inuit community, and it's just like the number, and Native American community, right? And the number of languages and cultures that have vanished, right? And there's no record, right? We
Mhm,
should be
mhm.
preserving these things. You know what I mean? Instead of, companies like Coca-Cola, right, creating things like diabetes within these communities, shipping Coke down to frigging Amazon, we
Mhm.
should be like doing things to help preserve, right? Don't try and change these people because they've been living and surviving and doing a great job, right? When you look at a lot of these cultures and peoples, there wasn't cancers, right? There wasn't all this disease and all of this stuff, right? So don't fuck with them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Just learn from, help record, so there is this knowledge, because there's so many takeaways, right? There's so many things that you can look at and go, oh man, we should be doing that. We should be incorporating that mindset into our lives, right? So I think it's such a valuable thing, you know what I mean, when you look at these things, right? Because hopefully, you know, people with sense will look at it and go, man, yes, let's help preserve. Let's not tear it down. Let's help preserve and keep it going.
Totally agree with you. Yeah.
Boy. Raynald, man. Like, I had a feeling that, you know, I was going to enjoy the doc and this was going to be a real insightful conversation, but I couldn't envision what this has been. This, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, man.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate you giving me your time, man. I really do. And especially, right, you've had a busy ass time, right? You should just be completely chilling and relaxing.
Well, as you can tell, I look chilled. I'm just hanging out in Marseille, just having a nice conversation with you, you know. You know, one thing I would like to point out again, as you said, to help us, we need to get the social media people. People start just connecting with us. Our Instagram is Amazing Grace YorubaWorlds. And our website is Amazing Grace YW.film. Okay. And these are the key places that we like to start building a momentum with. And also, this is where you'll know more about the film. On the website, we'll talk more about the each of the characters. We'll know if it's a birthday for Soyinka. We'll show some more clips of him and us. So you can learn so much as you are waiting for this film to be distributed and sold. Just keep an eye on all the cool pictures. There'll be some elements of, you know, just flashbacks of, you know, particular moments. I need to spend more time talking about the journey there. That's important for people to understand how we got to Professor, how we got to Abikuta, you know. There's things that he hasn't talked about. There's a lot of things that we didn't cover with him that are going to be, I'm going to have to put together a whole other film for that. You know, put it on in a beautiful moment for him, like the things we didn't cover in this film.
So, oh man, I imagine the BTS is incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's something in this age, right? Because, you know, with video and DVD, Blu-ray, you know, just the behind the scenes, like the making of documentaries, just all of these things were always so fascinating, right? Director commentaries, and it's something that we've lost, right? There is something about, you know, the ease of access of having things online and all of that kind of thing, but we have lost that. And I think especially in the indie world, right, those things are so valuable to help tell the story, right? To help breadcrumb people to the release of, right? And then after the release, to keep people's interest. You know, someone will see a clip and be like, that looks incredible. What is that? Oh, amazing. Great. I need to watch that, right? So I think all of these things are definitely tools that can help, you know what I mean, just promote and propel and just keep this film in the conversation.
Zeitgeist, absolutely, yeah. And Kevin, I think you and these other storytellers, because you're a storyteller yourself, because you watch and you give your people that listen to you a reason to listen and then a reason to continue watching and then do their own research, educate themselves. You know, education is not a bad thing, just to learn new things, a new angle of life, you know. So yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. And if you know, like a university, a school, a college, right? If they were thinking we'd love to show that, how would they do that? How can they get in contact?
Oh, they can get in contact with me on the website at amazinggraceYW.film. There's a contact for me, and then we can arrange personal private screenings. Obviously, we have to understand what they want to do, and we can, until the film is broadcast and shown.
Mm.
That's why we can still do that now, but we could do that. We want to do that. We've already, in the past films, actually this film, so you know, the first time I showed this film was it was February 25th at Harvard University, as you can imagine. The Professor Soyinka showed up to this event. Harvard pays for his flight. I went there, and Tunde and Kelani were there. And guess who hosted us? The king of the DNA, Henry Louis Skip Gates, because Skip Gates at Harvard was a student of Professor Wole Soyinka.
Oh,
So
damn.
the first screening at the university of this film was Harvard University at Harvard, February 25, 2025. And the first question Skip asked the professor, he looked at the film, he looked at Skip looked at the prof, and he said, "Prof, how the hell did you get Raynald in Abikoff during COVID?" The prof said, "Well, he had the balls basically to get his ass over there, and I gave him my time." But we had a great time with Skip. We drank all his wines because the professor loves wine, so Skip had wines ready for him. But I think we must have drank like 3 bottles after the night before. Again, it was the night before the screening. We had dinner at his house, and I think 3 or 4 bottles were drunk by Bacchus Professor Wole Soyinka. He loves drinking this wine. He said to me, "I don't want water, just give me more wine." He was like, "Glass up, top me up." And imagine being with Prof, Skip, Tunde, Kelani. I'm like this younger character in this array of giants, And do you know what I loved about it? It was the respect they had for what I did, honoring them.
Well, it's
that's a generation of respect. They respected that. They didn't talk down. They just loved the fact that you had the tenacity to make this happen. The professors to keep.
Well, I mean, there's so many facets to that, right? Because it's not just going, I'm going to tell this story that no one is talking about, but it's also the time in which you did it, right? It's lockdown. You went out, you know what I mean? Like,
I went out and got it.
Yeah. And there's a load of people that I'm sure were like, do not do that. Don't be crazy. What are you thinking about? Right.
And going to Nigeria. I thought I was going to a jungle with They still think that way, Kevin. You know that. More civilized people there. I mean, crying out loud. There's 800-year-old cultures in there, or 1,000-year-old cultures. They knew the word metropolis before that was even existing in the U.S. You know that. They were doing river deals since the birth of this nation. So, but there was, again, with the same people who tell you, your characters are not iconic enough.
Boy, so crazy. Like, if you know what I mean? If you do, like, I was gonna say, when you do what you're gonna do with this and do the big tour and everything, I think it's gonna be bigger than like a Def Comedy Jam tour. It's gonna be bigger than, you know what I mean, a Rockefeller tour, right? It's gonna be iconic, right? And when that happens, just look at all these people that doubted. And we're just like, oh, I don't think these people are iconic. When you're selling out venues and just changing the conversation, you know what I mean? Like, everyone will just look and be like, God damn, we should have been involved. You know what I mean? I think that's what it's going to be, man. That's what it's going to be.
And the river is still not gonna run dry, baby.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. You are creating new tributaries every moment with this. It's incredible.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Man.
Do you have any last one for me? I'm ready for the last big one if you have one. I asked a professor about the after death, which saw that nobody asked him that question before. So I'm one of those guys who opened up the source of the energy of the person. I don't care who they are. You know, so that's the beauty about him. He answered it. You know, it
Yeah.
was kind of, yeah.
No, that was that. Yeah, that was really interesting. You know what I mean? Especially with everything, and it's just like, okay, yeah. No, that was good, man. That was good. It's like, I think when we tell stories, right? When we embark on huge projects, like you pour yourself into these things, right? And you leave a little bit of yourself there, but you also come away changed, right? I think these things leave a mark, right? So what do you think? Like, how do you think this has shaped you, right? What has it done to who Raynald Leconte is, right? And helped you in your journey forward now, like to be able to tell the next parts, right? The next segment of this journey. How do you think you have been shaped and, molded via this experience?
It's a good question. You know, it's when he told me there was no turning back, and I said to myself, it's just going to be one. It's taken 5 years of my life. I'm like, I'm going to switch gears and do other things, you know. But when you say embolden, when I sit down and when I see audiences from Abyssinian to French to Africans watching what I've just did, asking for, are you kidding me? You got to do more of that. And I realized my instincts were spot on. So it's emboldened me to continue the baton of the Soyinkas and the Gilles. If it's not me, I don't know who else it's going to be. I'm hoping there's more of us out there, but it's diminishing on a daily basis. So the
Mm.
emboldening is the fact that waking up to the real fact that, as I told you in the beginning, I believe that it's a race against time right now. And if it's not us, adults, this generation, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that these other young generations can take over. In the meantime, I like to do one or two more of these while I focus on other things that are, obviously more commercial.
Yeah.
But it's given me the snake is wide awake now inside me.
Well, I think, like when people see this, right? I think it is that thing that will spark that new generation to, embolden them to be able to tell their stories, to build upon the foundation that you are creating, like
Yeah.
to, it's a quote Jay-Z, right? You're not a businessman, you're a business man. You know what I mean? And I think that's evident with this, like, and what you've been doing, like from building on, a story with Annie Lennox and Brian Eno to this, right? Because anyone that you told you were going to do that would have been like, don't be silly, Raynald, you're not going to be able to do that. And you did it, and now you've done this. I don't think anyone can say you can't. You can't is no longer in your vocabulary. I
No,
think
it's
it's just
not. It's not.
when.
It's not.
I think it's just when and how. That's the thing, right? I mean, that's what
It's
you've
not.
shown.
It's not. I mean, it's the fact that I got to Cannes after winning the LA with people say you don't be able to make it Cannes. It's too short notice. I did it. Sometimes my advice to people listening to this show, when you have that vision, it's ultimately you need to make this bold move still until you hand it over and move on to the next thing.
Oh, no doubt, man. No doubt. Man. Well, people, all the links to this will be on the webpage for this episode. So the website, the socials, make sure that you go, you follow, you absorb. And when you see this is, in your location, even if it's like a train journey, a drive away, make that right? Make that, because there's not a whole load of things that are transformative. You know what I mean? This is one of those things, right? Watching Amazing Grace, YorubaWorlds, that it's not just going to be, you know, something that, you know, passes the time. It's going to leave something in you. It's going to help redefine how you see the world, how you see yourself. You know, it's something that you need in your life. So people, check it out, do that thing, and yeah, keep, you know what I mean? Like, if you can invest, if you could do all of that, hit Raynald up, because yo, we need more of this. We need the part 2, 3, 4, and what else he has cooking in that incredible head of his. Because when you have a storyteller like Raynald, man, just get out of his way and let him create.
Thank you, brother. Get out of his way.
Hey man, I look, I appreciate your time, man. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Kevin.
Frankie, and everyone at Chick Heart, you know, Patricia and the crew for putting this together, because this has been just incredible. This has been incredible. So thank you so much, man. And I can't wait for, you know, you being able to announce distribution and all of these things and the next steps of this, and then seeing everything that you do after that. And listen, the door is open. Like, whenever you want to come back, you are just, hey, all you have to do is say tomorrow, and we're gonna make it happen. Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. I think it could be July. Hopefully, by that time we'll have more things to talk about, updates on release and things like that.
Okay, man. Well, I'm here, ready, whatever. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Awesome,
Kevin
man.
Scott. Thank you so much.
No worries, my brother. You take it
Thank
easy
you.
and keep striving, keep doing you.
And keep hope alive.
Oh, man, you're the lighthouse, son. So keep
Thank
shining.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, bro.